Welcome to CrossPlatform podcast, where we discuss how to solve productivity problems across platforms. I'm Augusto Pinaud,
And I'm Art Gelwicks.
and today we're going to talk about new holiday things. So, what are those things, those new things that are going to come to your world, that are going to play a game in your cross-platform world? And well, maybe from Art and I, some of the things that has been incorporated in this year. So what's coming new for you, Art?
This is one of those things where every year we kind of visit this a little bit from a standpoint of how do you integrate new things into your systems. But this happens to be that time of year where sometimes the unexpected shows up. Your wish list item, the thing that you haven't had but you really wanted to integrate,
Mhm.
but because of that, you may not have given it a lot of thought in advance to say, "Oh, this is now that I actually have this, how am I going to put it to use?" Um, I challenge people a little bit to think about that, not so much to get your own hopes up, but to also to really take this opportunity to say, okay, are there places in my system where something new could be added? And if it does get added, what are the repercussions of it? I've actually been going through a technology purge on some things as of late, pulling things out of my system that I just don't need anymore, don't use. Duplicated technology. Headphones are a good example of that. I was a bit of a headphone hoarder for quite a while. I know many of us are. We wind up with lots and lots of different headphones. And I've been going through and getting rid of a lot of them. But that means the things I was using those for, am I not doing those things anymore? Or will the devices that I have or could have suit and fit the bill for it? So for me, for example, upgrading to a set of, say, Galaxy Buds 2 Pro as earbuds uh, benefits a lot. Gives me additional functionality, gives me additional capability, um, additional comfort wearing the devices. So all of a sudden now I have earbuds in my ear for the majority of the day. How does that affect my system? Does that affect my system? Can I use that to my advantage or not? And that's where I really want to start to think about, okay, so what could change in my system? Uh, I don't know about you, but I've been looking at keyboards also. For some reason, I've been on a keyboard
And
thing as of late.
before you jump to keyboards, I want to jump into earphones because or headphones because that was something that changed for me this year. This year, like you, I have something on my ears most of the day.
Mhm.
And we have discussed here that I have multiple devices. And paying attention during the year, I noticed that I take calls mostly on two kind of devices. And based on that, I went and bought a second pair of headphones or AirPods. So I have in order where it is. So that way, on the devices that I'm taking most of my calls, they're always connected to the earphone. So I don't need to run, and I rarely need to hear the calls in stereo. Okay, there is no need for
Mhm.
that. So, but that gives me the ability that I can have, for example, my iPhone in one ear and the tablet on the other ear. Okay. And
Mhm.
I just connect it all the time. Then I don't need to struggle into switching. And that has been a significant improvement. I get it. Okay. It's one more device that you need to charge. But instead of
Mhm.
trying to switch and repair and unpair again the devices, or worse, as happened, one of the reasons this thinking was I was as I was moving from device to device, I was losing the call because the AirPods was changing to a different
Oh, yeah.
device. No, no, I don't want you to change. I need you to stay into this call. I'm using the other machine to solve the problem. So what I accomplished with that was, one, it's very easy now for me to know. I even bought them differently. Okay, if you are looking at the
Mhm.
video, you will see that they have the two models, and that is on purpose. This is the one I connect to the phone, the old style, the new style. I connected to the tablets. And the other benefit that I didn't count on that it is I don't have that problem anymore of the switching. Okay, I know
Mm,
which device
okay.
it is, and the only thing I have to pay attention is which, if the iPhone is on the left ear, the iPhone need to go to the left. Otherwise, my brain cannot compute where the call is coming from. but
Okay.
but that's a little detail for the big gain that I have, you know, get into this and has been very, very useful. So
Uh, Okay. Now you raised an interesting point though, that you acquired a second set to minimize the connectivity challenges and things like that. One of the things I've always struggled with earbuds, regardless of the manufacturer, is battery life. Eh, Typically, they will max out at 4 to 5 hours, five
mhm,
if you're lucky in most cases. I know with the Samsung ones, it varies depending on what features you have enabled at any given time. For example, if you enable the ambient sound capability, it will draw down the battery because it's actually
right.
using the microphones to push it through. So, on the flip side, I've also gotten a set of over-ear headphones. If you're on the video right now, I'm looking through them. Th- They're comfortable. They're fine. They do an excellent job. These are JBLs. They're not certainly not the most svelte things. I mean, they're pretty big ear cans. However, they're a 40-hour battery life. I can't use it up in a day. I guarantee it. So if I have that on all day long and I have it hooked into my computer, from a productivity standpoint, that's the best case scenario. Why? One, it's going to run all day. Two, I can listen to my music through the computer while I'm working to allow me to focus. Three, for me, my primary phone system is a VoIP based system. It's Google Voice. Well, I use the Google Voice client on my desktop. So I can take calls, I can make calls there. I use Telegram to take and make calls. All of those can go through the same set of headphones. That, from a productivity standpoint, is a really worthwhile solution. Now, the upside is these happen to be about a quarter of the price of the earbuds.
Right.
The downside is they're also about 400 times the size. So you kind of have to balance the two out. But that's one of the things to think about. I mean, we talk about wish list items. We talk about not even so much right now things that you might be getting unexpectedly, but maybe things that you'll be picking up after the holidays, during, end of season sales and things like that, because we always look for those kinds of things. Or gift cards, the expenditure of gift cards. Uh, Thinking about the items you're about to integrate into your system and how they're going to affect everything else can really eliminate a lot of the clutter. It can eliminate a lot of the challenge. And honestly, it can eliminate a lot of the disappointment. If I go through my drawer of earbuds, like I got 6 different sets I can think of just within arm's reach, none of them are exceptionally comfortable and have the complete feature set. The Buds Pros are probably the closest ones that I've found from a comfort and a feature set capability. They just don't have the battery life. So when we start to think about these things, again, I mentioned that I'm starting to look at keyboards, going back down that path because I'm finding that I'm doing a lot more writing right now. I'm in the throes of finishing and editing my new book, and that is forcing me to do a lot more keyboarding than I normally do. I do a lot of keyboarding, but not this much. So now I'm going, oh, well, maybe I need a mechanical keyboard. Maybe I need a clicky keyboard. Maybe I need a tactile keyboard. You got to go through that effort. You got to figure out what's going to work and what are the downsides to that. For example, the I mentioned the clicky keyboard, the clicky mechanical keyboard. While it's neat and it's very retro, it would also be useless when podcasting. So there's a dilemma there. When you think about the things that you're wanting to get, if you had to think about all the things out there, what would be the one thing that you would like to add to your platform right now? That it's not the if I don't have it, everything's going to stop tomorrow. But what would be the one thing that you think would make a difference for you right now?
Well, and I can tell you because it was added. Okay. My main machine was an iPad Pro 12.9. And well, because things are changing, I've been a lot more mobile recently. And that means all need to go with me. And the issue with that is I understand there is people who I consider mature enough who can buy a big bag and just carry the three things they need. I'm not that person.
Mm.
If you give me a space, okay, I will carry something just in the case of maybe I can't use it. The problem with that is when you add a bag where you can fit a 13-inch computer, you're now talking about a considerable bag. So it was heavy, very heavy. Okay. So I begin looking into that and I say, okay, what is the bag that I ideally will carry with me? Okay. And I have a bag that I love the size. The problem is my iPad do not fit into that
Mm.
bag. So I had two options: carrying that bag and the main machine, on my hands, or get me a new machine. And that's what I did. I moved to an iPad Pro 11-inch because it fits into that bag. And then that allows me now a limit on what I can carry. Um, and again, the change on that was not necessarily on the capabilities or not of the other machine. It was really how much I want to carry. And that is something very important for me. I have always
Mhm.
said portability, especially if I'm here in the office and I'm not going anywhere, doesn't matter. But as soon as I start moving, as I'm moving again, then portability comes to be a very, very important issue for me.
So, l- looking back over 2022, is there a particular thing that you added to your platform in this year that has made an exceptionally large impact for you? I have something and I'll talk about it, but I'm curious if there's something that stands out in your mind that
Well,
has made an
I
impact in
moved
your
the
business.
office. I built an office in the backyard of our house.
Mhm.
And yes, that changed completely how I work, what I do for work, and everything else. Because, or what I do for work, not necessarily, but how I work. Because now I am completely isolated. So I have needed to change certain things to pay attention. The kids used to get here. I used to pick them up at school, but you hear the loudness, of they moving around of the house. I don't have that anymore because unless they walk in here and as the weather is getting colder, they don't. Okay. Then I don't get any warning of, hey, it is, time to the next thing. So I need to pay attention to those things. And that has changed some of the dynamics. My office was a room, so I can always go back to the room. And
Mhm.
one of the things that happened now, it's not far. Okay. I get it. It's 7 steps. Okay. But it's 7 steps that I need to do before. I could walk
Mhm.
into my office at 11 a.m., 11 p.m. Now, for me to walk into the office, I need to go outside, lock the door, unlock the door, walk, unlock the office, get in, and pass to that call. And that is a resistance. Okay. There is a lot of moments that I admit that I need to do, can I wait? Okay. You don't want to, at
Mhm.
11 p.m. to walk into the call. So that was one of the things that made me think, okay, then I need to make sure that I can be portable. Okay. And I start moving the office basically in a bag to the home every night and say, this is ridiculous. So I look for a small waste and I connect remotely to the office if I don't want to come here. But that was a change on workflow. There is a now on the weekends I used to go and just get into my office and work. Now I'm
Mhm.
trying to stay in the house more like when I years ago go to an actual office outside of the building. So that change, or has changed the daily dynamic of how you do things.
Yeah, that's certainly because you're reintroducing that segmentation, that physical segmentation of your daily
Mhm.
life. eh, It clearly sets those parameters up for you to allow you to make those decisions and say, am I going to back and do this? When I leave the office, I am done for the day, that conscious effort. It's very easy to not have that. That's one of the challenges that I find myself all the time. I finish up what I'm doing. It's like 7:30 at night, and I'm like, I'll go back in the office for a little bit and work some more. It's that easy. Is that a bad thing? No, but it's a thing, and it's a thing that maybe that's taking precedent over doing other things. So yeah, it's having that physical separation that can be a big step, and that means introducing some things into your platform, desks, buildings, chairs, that sort of thing, that can really have an impact layer. For me, it
Correct.
was the addition. Go ahead.
For you, what's the addition? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. For me, it was the addition this year of my, Samsung Galaxy S8 tablet.
Hmm.
I've been playing with tablets forever, Nexus 6, all the way back, the different variants, Chromebooks, you name it. But my measure of the success of a device is the one that when everything else is turned off, you go, "Where is that?" And you go and you find it and you put it to use and you get it and you do it again and you do it again. And that my S8 tablet is the one device that no matter what's going on, I will go back and find it. I will I get really annoyed when it's not charged. That's that measuring point, which is interesting because tablets have never been a critical part of my operating system, uh, because I've always been fairly paper-based in taking my notes and things like that. I like my fountain pens, I like my notebooks, I like my paper, but I don't have to deal with any of that because I have the digital stylus now, and I have the digital notebooks, and the notebooks synchronize, and I have things like OneNote. Uh, I don't have to use the paper anymore. I don't have to use the pens. And it's taken a much more prominent role in my system. There's still a lot of there's a lot of road to cover for it to become a critical part. I mean, can I operate without it? Yeah, absolutely. Uh, do I want to? No, but it's one of those pieces where if I had to go back and look at all the different things I've added to my system during the course of this year, this is the one thing that has made the largest overall impact. And I can recognize that it will continue to do so because it has become a deciding factor on other parts of the system. So, for example, the tools and the applications I'll use, one of my measures is, can I get to it on my tablet? Can I access the information there? Oh, I can't? Well, maybe not. Maybe I won't use that because I
Well,
need that capability.
correct. And that was and that's something that for me came in the initial iPad, or maybe not the first generation, maybe the third one, but and it is that my workflow in general goes to exactly that. Okay. How this can be used on the iPad. And one of the things, interestingly, that you mentioned between the 13 and the 11 is when you do remote logging into the machine. I don't know. The 13 um, ratio makes that the computer need to adjust the resolution when you log in remotely, while the
Mhm.
11 doesn't. And I understand this is a little something,
Hmm.
okay, but it changed what which machine you want to use to log in. Because when I log in on the iPads, I don't need to think, okay, when I come back, I need to adjust. Everything is
Mhm.
completely seamless, and that make the thing much better to work and to move back and forward between devices. And when you start identifying those things, then as you said, those it is important to recognize it so you can put them at the beginning of that decision process.
So thinking about things adding into our systems and things that we're aware are on the horizon, is there anything physical or software or technology wise that you're aware of that is coming in 2023 that you're looking forward to trying to figure out how it's going to take its place in your system if it has a place?
Well, yes. I the iOS 16, who was launched this year, and recently here in December, Apple launched the iOS 16.2. And finally, iOS 16.2 allows you to connect the iPad to an external monitor, not to do mirroring, but to do extend of the monitor.
Hmm.
Okay? So that now brings you the question, do you really need, okay, that extending machine or that extending, or do you want now, as you upgrade the next set of hardware, just extend the, instead of buying a new device? In my case, I have individual devices. Do I need to upgrade these devices, or do I now want to buy, just monitors and connect those monitors, because I will be able to use the iPads extensively this way, or not? Okay, anyways, most of my work happen on the iPad, so that it is an interesting consideration. I have not tested or make a decision yet on what is going to happen. That will be a 2023 evaluation, but it changed because after so many years of having multiple devices, so I could have the multiple screens. Now I have the option to cut the presence of those devices and just get monitors. We are back. I remember many years ago, and this is geek out that maybe makes sense only for certain geeks, when we went, from terminals to machines, and then we start getting back to virtual machines. That, in other words, was a terminal.
Hmm.
And I used to joke, "Oh, we came full circle now." Well, with the iPad, we are coming full circle again.
Yeah, and excuse me, I don't think that's that off target, the idea of coming full circle on a lot of this stuff. Because when we think about, I'll give you a perfect example. When we think about Chromebooks
Mhm.
started off basically as a terminal.
Correct.
They've evolved to a true operating system, but they still are more cloud-based than anything else,
Yep.
um, which is diametrically opposite of the principles of a desktop level PC. For me, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought up the monitor thing because I mentioned my tablet earlier. Uh, but I'm sitting here looking at the monitor that I got this year, and the monitor actually made the bigger difference. I invested in a 4K monitor, and the 4K monitor has made all the difference because of the ability to run two things side by side in a portrait layout. So for example, as I'm working on my book, I can work on the other side doing research and bounce back and forth. I don't have multiple monitors. I have the monitor on my laptop. But aside from that, I just have the windows side by side. So I have the same effect. It makes a huge impact on my productivity because of how this functions. And it's interesting because I had forgotten about it. Even though I'm looking at it right now, I had forgotten about it. And that's the sign of something that truly makes a difference, is that it makes a difference without being the different object.
Correct.
Um, from a coming technology, there's been a lot of talk as of late about this thing called Chat GPT or OpenAI, which is an open artificial intelligence system. You can Google it; they'll tell you all the details about it. I don't understand half of it as of yet. Uh, but what's interesting is how it's being integrated into systems. So, to give you an example, I use Notion for a lot of my project management. They've integrated this open AI into Notion so I can go into it and say, give me ideas for a blog article around this topic. And it'll spit out 10, 15 ideas.
Mhm.
Now, I've already found there's some issues with it, and you have to be careful as to where there's a lack of transparency. But it's a fascinating step that this is going to go. Can I leverage this technology to increase my productivity of getting to a certain point to where only I can do after that point. Let it do the legwork up front. So I'm not entirely sure where that's going to fit, but I'm very curious to see where it fits and where it goes from now.
That's very interesting because, again, talks about how important is this cross platform and how important is to understand what works for you.
Mhm.
And because we just talk about two completely opposite sides. You went to a very large detail high resolution monitor to be more effective, and I instead reduce the size of my device so I can be more portable. And the reason I want to bring this is because that is the reason we do this show, but also what we want to bring as a message. One of the things that we see often is, well, you see Art buying this 4K monitor and you say, wow, that would look so nice on my office. Yes, probably
Mhm.
true. But will that monitor or that iPad or that tablet will fit the workflow? And one of the things that sometimes people who suffer from the shiny object syndrome, me, okay, I'm first one in that line, is we forget to put the workflow ahead and the gadget second. And it took, in my particular case, many years to learn that and to learn to put that workflow ahead of the gadget. And when people told me, I don't understand what you could do, why you can do what you do on the iPad, you could do it on a PC, you could do it on a Mac. Yes, all that is true. It's just this is the device that is first on my workflow, and everything else march on how this device works or don't work.
Yeah, it's really I couldn't say it better. Uh, Understanding the impacts of any decision you make on your workflow will determine whether or not you continue to be productive
Mhm.
and how long that adjustment curve has and whether or not that expenditure of time and money is worth it. As we start to look at the next year, and this is something that Augusto and I have talked about offline and in the pre-shows, one of the things that we want to start doing next year is taking common productivity challenges like task management, note management, file management, anything that all the different key topic areas, and say, okay, what are some of the tools that are out there that help with these challenges that may be kind of sliding under the radar? Not the big ones. I mean, when we talk about note management, I'm not going to talk about OneNote because I talk about OneNote all the time. I'm not going to talk about Evernote because we talk about Evernote all the time. But what are the ones that are the smaller ones that can really make a specific functional difference in how you
Right.
operate? I'll give you an example of a little feature thing that I found recently that I've been putting to use quite a bit. In Windows 11, there's an option now for a thing called focus mode.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily new, but it's there. And what focus mode allows me to do, it's tied to the Windows clock. It allows me to basically do like a Pomodoro type of effect. I can say, run a 45-minute clock or run a 40-minute clock. And then at the end of that 40 minutes, run a 5-minute break and then do it again and then do it again. And what it does, though, is because I'm flipping that switch and running in focus mode, it does things like turning off notifications on my machine to allow me to focus what I'm working on. It darkens the background so I'm not seeing all the distraction from things. Those kinds of adjustments, those little application selections can make a huge difference in your overall productivity and your overall execution. For me already, I have found that it has been invaluable in forcing me to dedicate time to editing my book. Because without that, it's very easy to get distracted off into something else. But it's built in. It's a tool that I would not normally look for or Or I'd go looking for an app somewhere to go do that. And I'd spend a lot of time trying to hunt that down. Well, it was already here. And it's the kind of thing that because it's already here, I can put it to use without having to track something else down and determine, is that thing going to be worth it or not? So as we start to look at 2023, that's one of the things we want to do, is to take big topics like task management, like I said, and say, okay, what kinds of ways can we tackle this across different platforms, across different systems? How do we do it on these various systems? How would you tackle managing tasks, or some unique aspect of it, like capturing tasks on the go? Well, how do you do it on iOS? What are some of the ways that are commonly done, and what are some of the less common ways that could be really effective? How do you do that over on Android? How do you do that on the web? How do you do that on Windows? To be able to look at those and say, okay, there's got to be a way to do these things because they're getting done by people. Just how do we work that into our systems? So that's one of the things we want to look at next year, is figuring out how these pieces start to fit together to tackle these larger problems, and start wrapping them together. So if you have high level topics like that, or areas that you want us to delve into, or just as much, if there's a particular app or application that you want us to take a look at and say, hey, I use this app all the time, or I'm thinking about using this app, what do you guys think of it? We'll take a look at it. Let us know. Drop us a line and we'll say, hey, we'll take a look at it. We'll load it up. Can we use it on all the different platforms we have? How does it work? How well does it work? What's our take on it when it comes to a cross-platform mindset of any given application or solution?
Correct. And you mentioned a very good point, because you may think that you knows, how to use. And I tell the story. I was talking to a developer, and we were talking about the iPad, and at some point I thought, well, but you can. This person was complaining about, they have their application and they have a PWA version of that, and he wanted to test when they develop on the iPad. And I said, well, you can run the PWA on the iPad. And this person looked at me like suddenly there was three heads in the screen. And this is a advanced user. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
it's a person who knows the iPad very, very well, but he had not yet experienced that on the iPad. And he tried in the way he tried, and he has not been able to do it until that day. So that is important, and that has happened the other way. Even that, as much as I use the iPad, there are things that I'm still learning. And in this case, you have the advantage to bring to a person who use the iPad heavily and a person who use Windows
Mm-hmm.
and Android very, very heavily. So you get the double whammy on winning on this.
Yeah, it's really key, I think, as we move forward, that we start to understand that we've got a very large back catalog of topics that we've covered. I mean, this is
Mhm.
episode 77, for crying out loud. We've hit a lot of topics and multiple times on some of the topics. So now it's time to really start to put things to use. Uh, Grabbing a topic, for example, how do you manage action items coming out of an email? How do we tackle that? What do we do with it? What do you do with it, Augusto? What do I do with it? What are some recommended ways across multiple tools? You could do it this way, and this one, this way, and this one. The idea is to do just that, create some new ideas. Let's create some new connectivity points, and give people an opportunity to really explore how to make their platform something that fits them better. Because we know, and we've demonstrated, everyone's platform is unique. No two configurations are the same.
Mhm.
If so many businesses, so many professionals, so many organizations just collapse and fall under their own weight because they try to get everybody to do everything the exact same, and people don't operate that way. There's there are some advantages to commonality of information when it comes to collaboration and sharing. That's great. But it's very difficult to make everybody work in the exact same way. People just don't think that way and they don't function that way.
No,
So
and that
as
came
we start to look at it,
to the
yeah, go ahead.
second point of importance is as next year comes and you start, oh, we talk about this app or we talk about this, and you feel you need more. Okay, let us know, because that's, we are going to go as deep as we think we can go or we should go, but it is that interaction that will make us go deeper. It's not lack of geekness in me or Art. It is just let us know how geeky
Mhm.
do you want us to go into this.
Yeah. The other piece that we're going to start to explore as well is, for better or worse, you're going to get a little bit more insight into the things that Augusto and I are doing. Specifically, the projects that we're working on and the productivity challenges that we're encountering on those projects. In some cases, how we've resolved them, in other cases, how we haven't, and how we're struggling with them, and what some of our ideas and our options are. Uh, I have found time and time again, hearing those kinds of case studies and use cases and practical examples coming from the real world can be extremely useful for people for a number of different reasons, beyond just the ideas, just from the standpoint of being able to say, you know what? I'm not the only one having a problem with this, or I'm
Correct.
not the only one struggling on my project. Excuse me. It's it's really important to have that paired context. So we're going to be digging into that as well. So you're going to see a lot of different topics and points of discussion start to get worked into our different episodes as we move forward through 2023. And we're really encouraging you to let us know what you think. Reach out to us with your ideas. Join us over at Personal Productivity Club. Give us some insights. Excuse me. If I survive this, I will be doing this in 2023. Stupid bug.
But
Um,
yes, come and join Personal
mhm.
Productivity Club. It's free. Okay, you will find our channel there. Okay, inside of Personal Productivity Club, the cross platform. And one of the things we want to do there is to have that more active interaction and being able to really to play, to be able to not only bring the content that we bring, but also to be able to respond the personalized questions that we may not be able to cover in the show, or that we may not know that you need. And that is the perfect place to go and ask. And if you don't want to be in the open, we can happily do it, as a private message inside of Personal Productivity Club. So
One of the things we are going to start doing as well is each week we will call out, or as frequently as we get them, we'll call out a question that we get through those channels and
mhm.
highlight it as part of the show and talk through it a little bit. If we find that it's something that isn't a unique circumstance, but could be affecting a number of people, it's a good idea, good just context for people to be able to say, oh, okay, wait, that sounds familiar. Or that sounds sort of like what I'm dealing with, but not exactly.
Mhm.
This is the place to have those conversations. This is the place to do that exploring. So this is we're going to take next week off because it is the end of the year. We're going to be releasing a whole bunch of our back catalog episodes. We've got a lot that have been sitting there in the queue, fermenting nicely. With the still has been running, so their alcohol proof is much higher now. I mean, they're just perfect. So we're going to be releasing a whole batch of those. So you're going to be seeing not only those hit all at once, but also we're going to start to put out some playlists around common topics, just to really start repurposing our content. So the last thing we would ask you to do is, if you have an episode that you like, you've watched it on YouTube, you've listened to it on your podcast, whatever, please like it, share it, send it out to people, thumbs up, whatever the happy reaction on your social media platform of choice is. Uh, that would be appreciated because that helps us understand, what do you want to listen to? What do you want us to explore? And it also increases the visibility for other people. And the more people that listen, the more people we have a chance to help. So
That's correct. So follow us where you like to listen to podcasts, like us or subscribe to us, as Art says, and leave us a review. You can also interact with us, as we said, in personalproductivity.club. We have a channel there. So without further ado, we're Augusto Pinaud and Art Gelwicks. Thank you very much for this 2022. This episode 77 is the last episode of 2022. So see you next time on your favorite device, or maybe on your new device.
there you
Thank
go.